flavor words and flavor text.
Not to be confused.
Yes. Is flavor text comprised of flavor words? Hello and welcome to JudgeCast. This is episode 1 of our brand new YouTube series focusing on how to become a level 1 judge. My name is Bryan Charles, and I am joined this evening, afternoon, morning drive to work by the one and only Charles Feather.
Hello, hello.
And the one and only Marcos Sanchez.
Hello, everybody.
So, this series is our first foray into the world of YouTube. So if you've listened to some of our later stuff and you find this cringe, as the kids these days say, we understand. We're still learning and figuring this stuff out. But in this series, we're going to cover aspects that will appear on your level 1 test as you work to earn your level 1 Magic Judge certification.
But before we dive into that, let's talk about our sponsor for this video series. That's right. Our sponsor for this series is Judge Foundry. Judge Foundry is a membership-based nonprofit organization serving the U.S. and Canada in providing certifications for tabletop gaming officials. They manage everything to do with obtaining and maintaining your certification, and provide educational resources like this one to ensure that every Judge Foundry certified judge has the knowledge and skills to be successful. When it comes to running Magic events at your local game store or at a larger international convention, Judge Foundry is a great resource for you to certify your skills. For more information on Judge Foundry, visit judgefoundry.org and click on the orange Become a Judge button to find out how you can earn your level. The link is in the description below. Now, back to today's episode.
For this series, focusing on what you need to succeed in your level 1 test, we're going to make a few assumptions. We're going to assume that you have some experience with the game, whether it be on MTG Arena or playing it at your local game store. In this video, we'll be focusing on what aspiring L1s need to know for the exam. So we won't cover everything that you could talk about in one rule set or another. We're going to focus on just what you need for the exams. Our goal is to educate, not overwhelm. If you want more detail on any of the topics that we're covering in this video, make sure to check out the description below for a couple of other episodes where we go deep on this and other topics related to this episode, or you can investigate the comp rules on your own.
All right, strap in. In this episode, we're going to focus on parts of the card. All right, you've all seen a card, right? That was in our assumptions earlier, or at least I hope you have. So on a Magic card, you're going to find the name, the mana cost, the illustration, the type line, an expansion symbol, probably, text box, and then you might find power and toughness, loyalty, defense, or a color indicator. There's some other things down at the bottom, little fiddly bits like illustration credit, legal text, collector number. For the completist, you might be saying, well, what about hand modifier and life modifier? Yeah, those are only on these really old things called Vanguard cards that you've probably never seen unless your back is hurting right now. So we're going to start off with name.
Names. How complicated can a name be?
What's in a name?
It's just the thing that's printed in the upper left, right? Well, yeah, you're right, but most cards will have a name. However, some cards, such as things like split cards or double-faced cards or flip cards, they might have 2 names. In fact, some effects might even give a card multiple names, and some objects, such as face-down cards on the battlefield, actually will have no name, just a blank space where the name should be. Note the name is not blank, it's just null.
A card's name is always considered to be the English version of its name, regardless of its printed language. Bear Cub and Osesno are the same card. In this world of alternate printings and secret layers, there are Universe Beyond cards printed with interchangeable names with another Magic card. These are considered the same card despite having different English names.
2 objects, and we're going to say objects instead of cards here because there are things called tokens and stuff like that that's more than a card, but 2 objects have the same name if they have at least one name in common. Okay, 2 objects have different names if they've got at least one name, and none of those names are the same. All right, so if they've got no name, can't be different. So 2 objects with no names are neither the same nor different, so they whiff on both checks.
Get wrecked.
Yeah.
Well, if any effect tells you to choose a card name, you must choose the name of a card that exists. You can't name a token unless its name is also the name of a card. You can't make up the name of a card because, well, that's not a card that exists. But it can be either half of a split card or either side of a double-faced card, an adventure side of an adventure, anything like that.
If the text of a card refers to the object it's on by name, it's talking about that instance of that specific object, and not other objects with the same name. Newer templates, starting with Foundations, have started referring to this creature or this spell instead of calling out the name for non-legendary cards. This is new templating that we'll see going forward.
So if an object gains the ability of another object, such as Bear Cub somehow gaining the ability of Consuming Aberration, okay, as an example, we treat the instances of the card name from that ability as meaning this creature. So Consuming Aberration's text says, or at least the relevant part says, Consuming Aberration's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in an opponent's graveyard. If Bear Cub somehow gains that ability, we replace Consuming Aberration's name in the ability with Bear Cub. So Bear Cub would have Bear Cub's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyard. So you can see with what's in a name, actually it's quite a bit.
Yeah.
What's the next thing that's not as simple as it might seem?
Oh, these little symbols and numbers that just quickly tell you how much something costs, or what we refer to as the mana cost. And we're going to wrap in color into the mana cost as well. So a card's mana cost is indicated by these little mana symbols at the top of the card, typically going to be the upper right card. Unless you're looking at Future Sight cards, those are on the left, but you'll see it. It's the one with the fun 5 mana symbols. The mana cost of an object represents what a player must spend to cast the cards. Now, some objects have no mana cost, like lands. Some other cards have no mana cost where you would expect mana cost to be. These cards are not free. It's not like when you go to the store and you go, oh, no price tag, must be free. No, nope, doesn't work in the store.
Such a dad joke.
Doesn't work here either. Yup. These represent an unpayable cost, so you cannot cast them normally. You'll see on those cards there's often a different way to cast those cards.
An object's color is determined by the mana symbols in its mana cost, and not the frame or border of the card. Objects with no colored mana symbols in their mana cost are considered colorless. There are exceptions. Sometimes there's a color indicator. We'll talk about that briefly a little bit later on in the show. And then there are effects that may change or grant an object color, or make an object colorless. For example, creating a red goblin token will make a red object, even though there is no mana cost on the token because the effect specifies the color.
The mana value of an object is equal to the total amount of mana in its mana cost, regardless of color. All right, so we had mana cost, now we're talking mana value. If you've been playing for a while, you might have called this converted mana cost in the past. So we're going to look at 3 cards. Gilded Lotus has a mana cost of 5, generic. Tatyova, Benthic Druid, has a mana cost of 3 green-blue. And Twin Flame Tyrant has a mana cost of 3 red-red. All 3 of these cards have a mana value of 5. Okay? And for split cards, for adventures, you are only casting 1/2 of the card. In these cases, when figuring out the mana cost, you are only using the half that you cast.
Now, some exceptions to this,
Ooh,
because everything has exceptions.
Yep.
If you need to know the mana value of a transforming double-faced permanent or spell's back face, just look at the front face and use its mana value. Now, get this. There's an exception to the exception.
Jeez.
If the object is a copy of the back face of a transforming double-faced card, the mana value is just 0. We'll have to explain that in a later episode that's coming on copying and copyable values, but for now, that's the rule for that. Next exception. The mana value of a split card not on the stack is determined by the combined mana costs. So mana cost of spell on the left plus mana cost of spell on the right. When you're determining the mana value of an object with X in its mana cost, you will treat that X as 0 unless it's on the stack. Then you use whatever value was chosen for X. For example, Hangerback Walker has a mana cost of XX. If you search for this in your library, it has a mana value of 0. But when you choose X as 1 on the stack, its mana value on the stack is going to be 2.
Algebra.
Yes, we love algebra in our card games. Lastly, for hybrid mana, you're going to use the largest component of each mana symbol.
So the Reaper King, for example, would have a mana value of 10.
Even though you could only pay 5 for it.
Correct.
Got it. Whew. Now, additional and alternate costs aren't part of that mana cost, but they may impact the total cost of the spell.
It's a whole different term.
Whole different thing.
So color indicator is a little circle printed on the left of the type line that will have one or more colors in it. Typically, it's used for cards without a mana cost that have a color or the back face of a double-faced card. An object with a color indicator is each color in the circle. For example, we have Ancestral Vision. That's a sorcery. And in the type line where sorcery is, you see a blue circle next to sorcery, giving Ancestral Vision a blue color indicator. For the card Ulrich of, really, we had to pull this? Let's see. Ulrich of the Kralin Horde, the back side of the card, is Ulrich Uncontested Alpha. And in Ulrich's type line, we have a red and green color indicator next to legendary creature Werewolf, indicating that Ulrich on both sides, because the front side is a 3 red and a green for the mana value, on both sides is a red-green creature.
And this is because, as we said earlier, that a card's color is determined by the colors in the mana cost. And since the back face of Ulrich Uncontested Alpha doesn't have a mana cost, we need to indicate what color it is, else it would be colorless. All right, illustrations. We're going to talk about art. Yep, the art and all the rules associated with art. Are you ready?
Go for it.
There are no rules associated with the art. It has no effect on the game. It's just there for funsies. Just because a creature is shown in flight doesn't mean it has flying. Yes, that is in the comprehensive rules, and way back in the day, people absolutely tried to make those arguments.
Note, art matters is a thing in unsets, but we are not discussing unsets in this.
No, you will not be tested on unsets. At least not for level 1.
All right. I'm going to go into type because I didn't feel very fulfilled with illustrations.
Go for it.
All right. Type. There's a lot of rules about type, and realistically, this could be its own episode, but the brief takeaway is the type line is right under the illustration. Every card has a type. Some additionally have super types and subtypes. Got that? There's super types, there's types, and there's subtypes. All right? The types you need to know are artifact, battle, creature, enchantment, instant, kindred, land, planeswalker, and sorcery. Some objects can have more than one type, like artifact creature, and certain types have intrinsic rules about when you can cast them or if, and what happens when they enter the battlefield.
Now, objects with types can have subtypes. Subtypes are tied to one or more of the actual full card types and are always listed after the dash. So they'll appear like creature-goblin or land-swamp. Most types have a specific list of subtypes associated with them. Cards can't gain a subtype that isn't associated with a type they have. For example, an artifact cannot be a swamp unless it's also a land, because swamp is a land subtype. The type or subtype of objects can change as a result of spells or effects. The effect may add new types or subtypes, or completely replace existing types and subtypes based on the wording.
Objects may also have supertypes. Supertypes are on the type line before the type and are basic, legendary, snow, and a few others that don't matter, at least for this show. Basic currently only appears on land, and only exists to differentiate basic lands from non-basic lands. Legendary permanents are subject to a rule called the Legend Rule, which is a state-based action we will discuss in a later episode. Legendary instants and sorceries are subject to special casting restrictions, where you can't cast them unless you already have a legendary creature or planeswalker in play. Snow also exists just to distinguish snow permanents from non-snow permanents, and to give mana a snow property.
That's Snow Moon.
If you want to learn more about types, click on the little doodly-doo up in the corner of the video, and you can learn a whole lot more about types. Next up, man, I'm getting all the fun ones here. The expansion symbol. All right. The expansion symbol is a symbol that typically tells people what set the card is from, unless the card is a card from the list. All right. Those cards have a little planeswalker fork in the bottom of in the bottom corner, unless they're also mystery booster cards. So really you don't actually know where it's from, even though that's intent. Basically, the expansion symbol is like the pirate's code. It's only a guideline. Some old cards might refer to cards by set or expansion. All right. Destroy all cards from the Antiquities set. Exile all cards from the Homeland expansion. Those cards have been errataed to refer to the specific cards in that set, so that now the expansion symbol has no practical rules meaning. It's just flavor unless unsets.
Yeah. Or to help you sort your cards.
Yeah, rarity so you don't get ripped off during trades.
Yep. Next up, and a pretty important part of the card, is the text box. Now, the text box is typically printed in the lower half of the card, but in some special card types, it may be on the left or right side. Rules text in the text box can supersede nearly every rule of the game, and depending on the text, may apply in any zone. However, some text in the text box may be italicized. Now, italicized words have no rules meaning. They can appear before rules text. So, for example, ability words. These are words that precede rules text, but aren't rules text themselves. They're basically a signpost so that folks can tell that cards have the same ability word and are similar. For example, landfall. Landfall abilities will usually trigger when a land enters the battlefield, but the result of that trigger isn't always going to be the same. You also have flavor words. Now, flavor words are not to make the cards more delicious.
What?
They actually help explain the flavor of the rules text when it's not immediately clear, so you don't have to eat the cards. Instead, it gives you some flavorful element or something that helps you immerse yourself more in the world or the story that the game is trying to tell.
Or they appear after rules text. In the case of reminder text, which is italicized text meant to summarize rules and be a help in reminding what certain rules and terms mean, but they are not explicitly rules text itself. It's always in parentheses. And flavor text, which is italicized text that also has no rules meaning and is there just for fun. Phrases that help sell the flavor of the card, as in the case of the card Inspiration, which has the flavor text, Day 31, I finally succeeded in my time reversal experiment, and Day 30, I might have a problem here.
All right, a final note on text boxes. Okay, reading the card explains the card, except many older cards and even some newer cards receive errata. Errata is most likely a change to a card's text box. All right. If a card has errata, it supersedes what is printed on the physical card. Sometimes it can reflect the errata can reflect a change in the rules or a templating change, or they're just trying to fix an oopsie. All right. If you have a question about a card's functionality, you can always find the current Oracle text on gatherer.wizards.com. But realistically, scryfall.com is better. You should really just go there for all of this stuff. But
Yeah,
gatherer.wizards.com is the official.
Yeah. All right, so next up, we're going to talk about power and toughness. Power and toughness typically appears on creature cards, but it can also appear on a subset of artifact cards that are called vehicles. These are two numbers in the bottom right corner of the card, and they're going to be separated by a slash. The first number is the power. The second number is the toughness. For example, an ambush wolf has a power of 4 and a toughness of 2. This means the wolf will deal 4 damage when it engages in combat, and it means that if it takes 2 damage, it will die.
If a power and toughness is variable or linked to an ability, the numbers may be represented by an asterisk, which is a little star symbol. In the case of Consuming Aberration, a horror creature, it has 2 star symbols in the bottom, the asterisk/asterisk. In that case, it will be linked to the ability text of the rules of the card. How that works exactly is for later episodes. Power and toughness can also be modified up or down by other effects, providing short or long-term boosts or suppressions. If a creature somehow has no value for its power, the power is 0.
All right. That's all we got for power and toughness, so let's now talk about loyalty. Okay, loyalty is a number printed on Planeswalker cards in the bottom right corner, right where the power and toughness normally is on a creature. This indicates the starting loyalty as it enters the battlefield, okay, or its loyalty when it's not on the battlefield.
Similarly, defense is like Planeswalker loyalty, only for the battle card type. It indicates the starting defense as it enters the battlefield, and its defense value when it's not on the battlefield.
Now the text box also has something underneath of it, very small text that describes any number of things. None of these items affect the game rules and may not even really exist considering the age of the card. They are collector number, rarity value, promo information, set code, illustration credit, and legal text. That's quite the list, and I'm sure that they'll figure out other things to put down there as time goes on.
The hologram!
And that's, and the hologram, of course.
A little hologram.
And that's, don't forget that Planeswalker symbol as well.
Oh, yeah.
And that's parts of a card.
And that's it for our episode focusing on the parts of a card. Once again, we'd like to thank Judge Foundry for their support in sponsoring this series for helping you earn your Level 1 certification. Make sure to visit judgefoundry.org and click on the orange Become a Judge button to learn how you can join the Magic judging community in the US and Canada and earn your certification with Judge Foundry.
And if you want to reach out to us, we have our own Discord server for judges new and old, fans, and anyone who supports the judging community. The invite link to our Discord is in the description below, as well as our JudgeCast and individual social media links. If you're a fan of our content, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel and ring that bell to be notified of when new videos in this series are posted or when a new episode of our full podcast is released. Make sure to check out our playlists for a complete playlist of this entire series, as well as Learn to Judge playlist with episodes from JudgeCast's history focused on helping you become a better judge. And you can find everything related to JudgeCast at JudgeCast.com. With that, I'm Charles Featherer, and I keep it fair.
I'm Marcos Sanchez, and I keep it fun.
I'm Brian Perlman, and I keep my power and toughness in the text box.